again, everyone. Today I am here with a little bit of a Jackson's Art Supply haul. I haven't done this in a little while, so I was encouraged to make an order because they had watercolor brushes on sale, and there were a few that I had been looking for, or at least a few types of brushes that I had been looking for. And then I ended up making these other purchases here. I'm going to open this at the end and swatch this out because there's a watercolor palette in here, but this is the Academy Watercolors by Schmincke, and you'll see a little bit why I got this when I open it. But I will swatch these because I'm actually very interested to see what the Academy watercolors look like compared to professional watercolors. I'm not going to be doing a direct comparison here on camera today, but hopefully just by doing the swatches of these, you'll be able to tell whether you might like to just get the Academy version of watercolors. So my idea was, because this palette is a special palette, my idea was to take these Academy watercolors and make a separate palette with them and give them to my nephew, who is going to be 7 here shortly. I can't believe he's going to be that old. But I was planning on giving them to him because we like to watercolor a lot, which is really quite nice. I love to do that with him. So I was thinking of giving him the Academy watercolors so that, because they are a lower grade of paint than professional watercolors. And actually I've been bringing one of my professional watercolor palettes to watercolor with him, and he likes to use a lot of paint. So he gets in there with very little water and a lot of paint. I've been trying to teach him that, you can use a lot more water and a lot less paint, but until he fully gets that message, the Academy colors might be better for him. So anyway, I'm going to put this off to the side and then I'll open this box at the end. And I'll actually discuss the brushes here in a minute as well. But I did want to talk about how they just recently started carrying pastel paper pads. So these are more for soft pastels, not necessarily for oil pastels, although I suppose you could use them for oil pastels as well. But they're mainly for soft pastels or pan pastels, and I actually have quite a collection of pan pastels that I have not been using very much. I usually use them in encaustic painting, which is working with beeswax, because they work really well with that medium, and I haven't been doing that a lot. So I did want to learn how to use my pan pastels in more of a way of using them on their own. So I also got this book, this workshop, Pan Pastels by Julia Woning, I think is how you say that. This is the first time I've seen this book. I have not looked into it at all. So I'm hoping that this will be a little bit helpful. I don't have any books on pan pastels, but the pastel paper was actually very inexpensive. Pastel paper is usually super expensive. Like, if you think fancy watercolor paper is expensive, fancy pastel paper is super expensive. Like, it's even more expensive than watercolor paper. But I was really happy to see that they had pastel paper that was a lot less expensive than other products that are on the market. It's not 100% cotton, although I'm not sure if that's the tradition to use 100% cotton as the best paper with pastels, but this is 45% cotton with a light texture, ideal for soft pastel paintings and sketches. So I will test those out, but not today. I just wanted to make you aware of the fact that they started carrying that. If you're a pastel artist or want to get into pastels, that might be a good place to start. I'm going to put those pads off to the side here. And then I'm going to just flip really quickly through this book. You may not be able to see a whole lot, but I did want to at least flip through to just kind of see. So pan pastels, if you don't know, they are essentially almost all pigment. And then they're in these little jars, and it's basically like soft pastels because they usually come in a little stick without any of the binder. I don't know, it might still have a little bit of binder, but it's mostly pigment. And then you paint, I think they call it painting, pastel painting. You paint it on your paper or your canvas with these little tools or brushes, but basically it's something that can smear the pigment onto the page. So hopefully, it gives you a history. Here it talks about the difference between pastel sticks and pan pastels. Pan pastels create less dust than pastel sticks, and that's actually one of the downsides, in my opinion, to pastel sticks, is they do create a lot of dust. There were several other things there, but I want to spend the bulk of my time on this video focusing on the swatching of that palette over there. So let's see. Oh, this is actually really nice. Oh, and so it's telling you how to use pastel pencils and colored pencils with your pan pastels. So this should be fun. Black and white. And then it kind of shows you how to do shadowing and that sort of thing. So this is great. This is, given that I am a super beginner with pastels, this will be a great way for me to be a beginner and learn this. Oh, I hadn't really thought about using pan pastels with stamping and stuff. Ooh, this is giving me new ideas on how to use my pan pastels. I mean, I suppose it makes sense. Anything that you could use with a medium, you could use this pan pastels, because it's essentially just pigment. Journal pages. Oh boy, this is going to be fun. I'm excited. Clearly a British author, because the coloring is spelled with OU. Excellent. Sketches. Ooh, this is so exciting. Okay. Whoa, that seems like it'd be quite the setup for outdoors. I don't think I'm going to be doing that, because that would be quite the crazy setup there. And I don't have a huge breadth of colors. I kind of, because they have, sorry, I couldn't do, if you want me to do a more detailed flip through of this book, just let me know. But otherwise, you kind of got a taste for that there with just the few minutes that I went through that. And I'm actually going to get the watercolor paper pad, which is this Pentalic field book, out just so that I can have it so we can do the swatching of this paint. But I'm first going to show you these brushes here, and I think I'm going to do the swatching on this little Raven's brush here. So this one, I actually did not realize that it had this long of a handle, because this is actually an acrylic brush, and I was looking for a curved filbert acrylic brush so that I could use it for my collage, because I thought that that might work a little bit better than a square brush for gluing and that sort of thing. This is a really inexpensive brush, even though it's big. It is by Daler Rowney System 3. System 3 is kind of their student grade for, I guess, for brushes as well as acrylic ink. They have acrylic inks called System 3, and they're the sort of the student grade version. And this is a number 10 filbert. So filberts just have this rounded edge. There are a lot of filberts in watercolor brushes as well, but this is specifically acrylic, so I was planning on using this for mixed media. But like I said, I usually look at the handle length, but I must have missed that on this one. It's probably because I had a lot of different filberts in my cart, and then I just ended up getting this one as the least expensive one. Because as you can see, these are short-handled brushes, and this is more like what I'm used to using for watercolor. And this is even a little long, because this is more what I'm used to with watercolor, is that short of a brush. So this will be interesting, although maybe it'll give me some different ways to paint, because if you go to the back of your brush, you can get really super loose with the front. I'm actually not going to put that little plastic piece on again, but I'm going to put that brush off to the side. I'm not going to be testing these brushes out today, just because for economy of time, I don't want to do that and the watercolor. So these two are, what are they called? Cat tongue? I think they're called cat tongue, that shape. So I wanted to get, and these are for watercolor, and I believe that these are squirrel hair. I think they're genuine squirrel hair, so they're not vegan. And this is a large and an extra large sky wash brush, which you could use it for skies, because the squirrel hairs hold a lot of water. But I wanted to kind of play around with some abstracts with these particular ones. These are kind of pointed. Cat's tongues can also be a little bit curved, kind of like the filbert, but these should be fun to play with. When I was looking at the sizes, I thought about only getting this large one instead of the extra large, but I thought the extra large would also be fun, and they were both really inexpensive in the recent sale. I think the brush sale has since ended. And then I picked up a couple watercolor brushes, which for now I'm going to leave in their little plastic container, although except for this one, because I am going to use that one for our watercolor swatching. So this is the Raven brush, and these are, so that larger one was Daler Rowney, but these are all Jackson brand. Well, this one is not. So these three are Jackson's brand. Raven, I know it has some synthetic in it, but I can't remember if it's all synthetic. It may be a blend. I'm pretty sure it's all synthetic, but I would double check that before you decide to get anything. I'll put a link to all these products so that you can, I'll put a link below so that you can go and check these out for yourself. And this, I've been wanting to get this 10/0 size Raven brush, which is the smallest size that they have. But the last time because I have another Raven brush that I really, really love. I really like this mop style with these little wires around there. I'm not sure why I gravitate towards these. I prefer this to a traditional ferrule. I don't know if it's the look or if there actually truly is something different about the feel. I feel like there's a little bit of difference. Generally the ferrule tends to kind of flatten out your brush hairs, whereas in this iteration it can be rounded, but this is not always the case. They can also make them rounded. So yeah, so I don't know if it's aesthetic, but I like these. But the one that I got before was a little larger than this because they kept going out of stock of the in the 10/0 size, which is the smallest size, which is actually a little bit better for painting, you know, smaller paintings, which is what I'm doing most of the time. So so I went ahead and snagged this one, which I was wanting to get for a while, and that is what I'm going to use for the swatching today. And then I'm going to leave the top on, and then I got this Davinci Zero Spin Synthetic Brush. So this is all synthetic, and I really like the Davinci synthetic brushes. They are a little bit more firm than natural hair brushes, but to me they have a really nice feel, and I actually like the added control you get by having a little bit of a stiffer brush, even with watercolor. Okay, I'll go ahead and, oh no, that's too far on, because I was gonna show you the texture, but you can see, I mean, it's not super duper. Actually, maybe if I wiggle it, I can get it. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, so it's not super stiff, but it's definitely a little bit stiffer certainly than a squirrel brush, because that would be super soft. But I really like these. Davinci also makes some really nice travel brushes with the same synthetic material that are also really, really nice. And this, I think, is essentially the same size as this one. No, it might be a little bit bigger. It's certainly a little longer. This is the size 0, like I said. I might do a little swatching with this one as well, but we'll see. I need to wet this one, so I'm going to do that real quick before we go on to the swatching, because I don't want to spend a ton of time swatching. Okay, so that softened up pretty quickly. And then I can kind of show you what that looks like when it's wet compared to this one. So yeah, they're roughly the same size once the bristles are wet on that one. So I'm just going to rinse that out real quick. I have a paper towel off to the side here to dab off some excess water. And obviously I have a cup of water off to the side. So let's go ahead and get in here and get to swatching these. So it is this really great square palette, which I love already. I recently showed my most recent iteration of a travel watercolor palette, where I used this sort of square-shaped palette. Those tend to be special edition palettes, and this one, even though it wasn't really advertised as a special edition, I'm pretty sure it is one because I don't see it all the time. So this is a little bit heavier than your normal palette because it has a a porcelain insert here. So I'm not really sure whether I'm going to use this like this, because I also like using this palette by just putting, okay, so these will come out. But I think that the porcelain tray also comes out, because I mean, you can wiggle it around in here a little bit, so I'm pretty sure you can take it out and then just have this palette. And then you could use this as just like a mixing palette separately. And I'm not sure what's on the other side. Actually, let me go ahead. I want to preserve the order of these because I am going to unwrap them and swatch them. But before I do that, I do want to see whether I can get this. I'm wondering if it's in there with a magnet. Yeah, there we go. Yes, it is in there with magnets. So it's not reversible. You wouldn't be able to use this other side. But if you take this out, then you can use this to just put regular pans using magnets to put them in, like this is in there magnetically. And then you could use these as little mixing wells. So in a separate little palette. So I'm kind of thinking of doing that. But for now, I'm going to leave that in there and make my decision. But I do, let's go ahead and unwrap these as we put them back in. So I do plan to, put these in order there. I do plan to put these in a different palette, like I said, so that my little nephew can get these. Because I think he might be excited about that. He likes new things. So he likes it when I come over with new things that are specifically for him, but we'll see. We'll see whether he likes them. So these are pretty easy to unwrap. I'm keeping them over here in kind of the same order so that I can tell you what colors they are when I'm swatching them. I actually don't know what colors they are either. It looks like a pretty balanced set that's sort of the dual primary system, which I've talked about on the channel before, and I probably won't really go into too much detail here. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time here, so I do want to try and get through these. That's what happens when you get a big haul. But if I don't do this, if I don't swatch these, like, I'll hear about it in the comments. That always happens. Like, oh, why didn't you swatch that? Like, well, I didn't have enough time. So I'm trying to leave time this time. And because these are so easy to unwrap, they're not taking that much longer than if they were unwrapped. And I probably will zoom in a little bit here so that you can see my swatches a little better. I have a little bit of allergy problems going on. It seems like they come and go this season. Oop, that pan almost fell out. So I'm having a little bit of trouble breathing. But yeah, I generally have 2 allergy meds that I take every day, and then sometimes if it's really bad, I will take a 3rd. But yeah, I think the smoke too has been pretty bad, although it comes and goes, and it's been a little bit better lately, but it can get pretty bad. Oh, that's interesting. So this does have a black in it, which I normally don't see in the professional collections, because black is something that you can definitely mix yourself. So I'm going to put a dab, oops, looks like a little more than a dab, of water on each of these so that they can moisten up a little bit, because I'm not sure if they're going to be as creamy soft as the professional grade. So this will give them a little bit of a help along. Okay. And then I'm going to, oh, I love that brush already. It's great. Okay, while those are sitting in, I'm going to open to a page in here to do these swatches. I think I might do them on the back of a page. Let's see, oops, I'm flipping around those things. Okay, yeah, let's do this page here. And so I will zoom in so that you can see that a little better. And then I will tell you which colors these are as I'm swatching. All right, so this first one we have, oh, that actually wets pretty well, but that's really nice. This is light lemon yellow. I can tell, however, that they have a little bit less pigment than the professional grade, and that is generally the distinction between student grade and professional grade. That's a beautiful one. That's just orange. These are really lovely colors, though. I think that these will be a hit. And that is a lovely red. This is Cadmium Red Hue, meaning it doesn't actually have cadmium in it. It's just the hue of a cadmium paint. And then this, I don't know, these are still pretty good for academy paints. So this is Carmine. So this definitely is shaping up to look like a dual primary palette, because we have a, well, this is orange, but it can be a warm yellow. It can operate as a warm yellow. So you have cool yellow, warm yellow, warm red, cool red. And then it seems like we also have some neutrals here. So this is English red. Really pretty. But yeah, you can tell as they dry too that they're not as pigmented. And then we have another neutral. This is yellow ochre. They're really easy to re-wet, especially after wetting them like that. And then this one is burnt umber. That's going to be next here. Actually, I'll put them in the order in which they are in the pan. It's burnt umber. Yeah, and sometimes burnt umber, I wonder if it's a more expensive pigment, because it definitely seems to be less pigmented than some of the others, although I did add quite a bit of water to these. So let's see. And then down here we have a green. That is, I was gonna say, that looks like a May green to me, which is really super bright. But you could easily mix that with other colors and tone it down a bit, which I may actually show you here the end. And then this is brilliant green, which looks a little bit like a phthalo green, which is a very versatile color for mixing, actually. Okay, and then we have Prussian Blue. Yeah, and again, that one looks a little watered down. I'm adding a lot of water, and this brush holds a lot of water as well. And then we have Ultramarine, of course, because Ultramarine is a standard. It's a great color. I didn't used to like it, but I really love it now, because it's great for mixing and it's great for skies and things just on its own. Okay, and then the last one is black, which, like I said, I wouldn't normally include in a palette. But I think, you know, my nephew actually really likes black, so I think this will be a good palette for him. And he'll be okay with the fact that they're not newly opened and that I have used them before, because I'm bringing all kinds of watercolors to him all the time that way. Okay, so there we go. Oh, and I did say I would show you how to tone down this. So I'm gonna do a little swatch of this green, and then we could just use, which one's that? English red. Oh, that was probably too much English red, because now that's really toned down. That's like that's so toned down it's a neutral. I'll try and add a little bit more green in there and see if we can get it back to green. Yeah, so there you go. There's an example. So just by adding that neutral color, you can get a completely different neutral green. Okay, and I'm super stoked about this brush. I love it. I'd have to say that of the Jackson's brushes I've gotten, this is one of my all-time favorites, these Raven brushes. So it's really nice to have a smaller one than what I had before. I'm actually going to, let's go ahead and test this other little one out. Definitely a lot stiffer. So let's see which color. Let's use this crazy red here. So yeah, so you can't get as much water into this brush. The Raven brush is like super, super wet, can get very, very wet. So you'll get a little bit more brush strokiness. And actually this is another thing that you see more in student grade paint as opposed to professional grade paint. You're more likely to get those brush strokes. And again, that's just because you have more filler in the paint itself. Okay. So yeah, so this one's way stiffer. I still think it has its purpose for sure, but for a good all-around brush, if you like a somewhat soft and super nice wet brush, the Raven brush is my favorite for that. Okay, so I think that's all I had for you today. I'm going to go ahead and put this up to the camera real quick, but then I am going to end the video. But yeah, these are pretty good for student grade paints, I would say. These are probably better than the Winsor & Newton Cotman, which is the Cotman brand student grade paint. That's often what I'll recommend if people don't want to go for artist grade right away. I recommend going with artist grade right away and just starting with a smaller palette with fewer paints and like your essentials palette. I'll actually put a link down below to the beginner watercolor recommendations that I have in a video. But the Cotman paints were pretty much the only brand of student grade paint that I would say ever get, because it's a lot better than a lot of other ones. But I would actually say that this edges out the Cotman, because let me see though. I want to see how. Let's do a classic. Let's do a classic mix of. Let's do this yellow, this bright yellow, and the ultramarine blue, and see how they mix. Now see, that's pretty nice. That's because I added a lot of blue just now. It's sort of a dark teal, which is really, really beautiful. And I'm trying to see, I don't see a lot of granulation in the ultramarine. That's usually a trait of ultramarine blue, and I'm not really seeing a lot of granulation there. So I'm wondering if that's one of the things you might sacrifice as well with the student grade paint. But it definitely seems like it will make lovely colors in mixes. All right, well, this is going to be my new go-to, although I don't think it's for a student grade recommendation, but I don't think it's available all the time. As of the date of filming, they do have it on Jackson's. I will put a link to this palette if I can find it, but if not, I will just say look out for it if that's what you're looking for. But in the meantime, this is going to be some really good paints for my nephew for sure. All right, well, that's all I had for you today. Feel free to subscribe to keep track of future videos on my channel. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like. I hope to see you next time. But in the meantime, have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye.